Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome, one and all, to this very special Saturday night here on Pacific 4 and 4 for YouTube, Rumble, and X. As this is the premiere episode of something I've been thinking about for a while, and for anyone who has watched Pop Talk, you know how many times I've brought up the subject of Star Trek during the show, but I've been thinking about this for a long while, and it's been 2 years since the finale of Picard, which left a bad taste in my mouth. But this is The Adventure Continues, a Star Trek discussion, where each and every other Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, we will take a look at one specific episode from one specific series or one of the 10 movies, and we will not only discuss our thoughts on the episode before we actually start watching the episode or movie, but while we're watching the episode or movie, we'll be discussing it and pointing out things that we haven't seen before in either the episode or the movies. You know, Star Trek has always been a big part of my fandom. One of the episodes I vividly remember watching at the age of 7 years old was Tomorrow is Yesterday, and being fascinated by this time travel story about the Enterprise going back to 1966 and meeting Captain Christopher and the situations that occur in that episode as far as altering time and destinies and a few other things that happen in that episode. I don't want to get too deep into it as far as everything else that goes on in that episode tonight, but it is going to be a future episode of The Adventure Continues, the Star Trek discussion, and you'll find out after this broadcast when it will be. But it was that episode when I was 7 years old, when Star Trek reruns were airing in syndication, that this franchise hooked me. Just like Next Generation, Season 3, Yesterday's Enterprise. That hooked me onto Next Generation. And Deep Space Nine. You know, there were a couple episodes that actually hooked me onto Deep Space Nine, and it actually happened in the second season. And one of them being the Jem'Hadar, the season finale for season 2 of Deep Space Nine. It really hooked me, and there are other episodes of Voyager that hooked me. Enterprise, unfortunately for Enterprise, there wasn't one specific episode that really hooked me. It was always one of those series that really seemed to be a lot of misses rather than hits. But if there was a particular season that actually made me go, maybe they're going on the right track here, that would have to be season 3 of Enterprise. That really seemed to be the time when Enterprise was starting to find its way, especially when you had the late Manny Koto writing for it. So, what we are going to do here is we are going to watch and discuss, all of you, the very first pilot as far as James T. Kirk is concerned, but the second pilot overall for Star Trek, the original series. And that is Where No Man Has Gone Before, but it's not the original broadcast version. This particular version that we're going to be watching tonight is actually the original cut. So there's about 5 more minutes in this episode, and some of the things that are included in this episode in that 5 minutes is there's a longer epilogue in this version of the episode as compared to what aired on NBC. And you actually get to see a few more shots of the corridors and the crew walking through the corridors. But one thing you'll notice as we watch It's not like how you see it when it airs on NBC back in '66, or how you see it in syndication on the DVDs, Blu-rays, the VHS. What you're gonna notice with this particular cut of Where No Man Has Gone Before is that there's an act one, there's act two, act three, and act four, and that's displayed on the screen. Now, for those of you who might be wondering, you have a guest, don't you? Well, I've been trying to get in contact with that guest. Unfortunately, there must be some subspace interference, and all of my hells have gone unanswered. So, Baron, I hope you're okay, brother. I hope everything's good on the home front. If you're able to hop into the broadcast at any time, please do so, my friend. But before we get into this episode, I do have to put the Cosme link over on the X side for everybody who is watching us on X. So if you're currently on X, I am placing the link into Cosme right now. And also, before we get started here with the episode, I do want to say hello to everybody who's come aboard. First, I want to say hello to FKHC 2005, also known as Tim. Good to see you, Tim. Hope you're doing well on this Saturday night. We also have the lovely, the kind, the keeper of the dragons, Lady Mist. Good to see you tonight, Lady Mist. And Tim, being funny, says, after that opening, that's our show. Good night. Well, I would love to hear everybody's feedback on that intro. I've been working on it and trying to get it, you know, tuned up and looking the way I wanted it to look. So I welcome all feedback, whether it be for the intro, whether it be after tonight's show, during tonight's show, or any content that you see over on Pacific 4 and 4 for YouTube and Rumble. Please feel free to give me your comments. But if everyone's ready, and I will be keeping an eye out for Baron, hopefully he's able to pop in. Hopefully everything's okay on the home front. But ladies and gentlemen, the link to Cosme is pinned to the chat on YouTube and Rumble, and I just posted it over on X for the live feed. So here we go. We are departing space dock in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And as you can see, it's already starting off a little longer than what you actually see in the actual aired episode. And you'll also notice that the theme, it's not the theme that we know and love, but you'll hear it for yourselves here in a moment. I know Baron was telling me that when he first heard this theme, it wasn't something that he actually gravitated to. It just didn't seem to fit for the series. But also another thing that they did for this particular version of Where Man No Man Has Gone Before is they actually substituted some music. Thank you, Tim. It took me a while to get it to look right, but I wanted it to be appropriate. I wanted it to feel like, you're stepping into the final frontier. And it's good to see Low Spec. How you doing, Low Spec? It's good to see you tonight, brother. And see, as you can tell, with this being the pilot episode, they haven't quite figured out Spock yet. He's not the Vulcan that we get to know, grow attached to, and someone that we love. I'll take a look at that, Tim. Let's see what Tim has for me here. We could possibly look at it after the show. Yeah, I remember reading this article from, I think it was a Washington Post, or maybe it was the USA Today, where they talked about restoring the original Enterprise model. Yeah, I don't mind reading that after we're done. And see, another thing that you will also become aware of in this particular episode, yes, James Doohan is in it, but he's not known as Scotty. He's known as the engineering officer. And you see here, after the Act One, it then shows Leonard Nimoy as the co-star. Of course, there was Gary Lockwood, and of course, Sally Kellerman's in this episode. Tim says, I was lucky to see it being restored. I went on a sixth grade field trip to Washington, D.C., and we went to the Smithsonian. And I actually saw the hanging there, and it was all illuminated. And there was a couple of Star Trek episodes being played. So, yeah, and if you notice too, and you will notice when the end credits come up, to that they just refer to him as engineering officer in the credits. And as you can see here, even the view screen's not the view screen that we come to know from the original Enterprise. Yeah, you have to give a lot of things that you see here in the pilot episode of past, because again, they're still trying to carve the path for the series. Define what Kirk is about, what Spock is about, and of course, you see Sulu there, and of course, the Doctor that you see in this episode doesn't continue on with the series. And don't worry, everybody, if you give away any spoilers for any episodes or even this episode. Yep, that's true, Tim. But don't worry if you give away spoilers. I think everybody who is interested in rewatching these episodes and discussing these episodes has already seen them multiple times. So don't worry about it. And also, for anyone who might be new, that's why there's the Cosme link, so you can watch along with us and see what we're talking about. Yeah, yeah. That's my thought on it too, Tim. And this is the only time you'll see Spock wearing a gold uniform in the original series. Although I know it does look more yellow than gold, with a little hint of green. Well, what's Hot Lips doing there? You know why Hot Lips is there, Tim. And of course, even in the background, we see images of different gases from space, solar systems, stars, and yeah, they do look like turtlenecks. I mean, you got to give them credit, not just back in '64 and '65 when this episode was filmed and the original pilot, The Cage, was filmed, but you got to give them credit for the production design, those special effects, creating those back in the '60s when they didn't have the technology that we have today. Yeah, no Uhura. And of course, Chekhov doesn't come in until the second season. Now, I will let you all know there will be times when we're watching episodes of the original series. It will be the original version that aired on TV, and then other versions will be from the remastered. And yeah, I know someone's going to say these effects are dated. They weren't dated for 1966. And looking at these episodes now, that's the charm of the original series. Just like you watch Next Generation, especially in the first season and second season. There's a difference between those 2 seasons and then the latter seasons because they figured out how they needed to light up the set. And of course, that there is a lot of flashing because they're in the Great Barrier. I mean, as far as I'm concerned with these special effects, yes, it does add to the charm of the original series, but it doesn't take it away from the original series either. It's what I like about the original series. Even when the remastered Blu-rays came out, where they give you the option of watching the episodes as they originally looked or the remastered versions, I tend to go with the originals. And there you see, Gary's been infected. His eyes are now silver. And then this is another thing, like I was saying earlier. Now, when they're going to the next chapter, per se, after commercial break, it says Star Trek Act 2. And another thing that you'll notice about the Enterprise model is that the Bussard collectors aren't glowing as they do in later episodes. I want to keep it primarily to just one episode per night because I want to try to keep these streams for the most part, with the exception of the episodes that were 2 hour movies or the feature films themselves, under 2 hours. I mean, yeah, Threshold, I get what they were trying to do with that episode for Voyager, but the execution wasn't very good. And yes, at some point we will be watching Move Along Home from Deep Space Nine, an episode I don't really enjoy because the ending pretty much tells you that your main characters were never in danger. And Code of Honor, we will probably talk about it and watch it and criticize it. Because that's the thing about this. You can come on, you can criticize the episode, you can tell us what you like about the episode, you don't like about the episode. Some of the episodes I may think are some of the worst episodes of a particular series may not be that way for someone else. And of course, there you see Gary Mitchell's looking at all the ship's database while in sickbay. And one thing I do like about this episode is it gives you a little bit of the history between Kirk and Mitchell, but I would have liked to have seen more. And you'll start noticing some changes in Mitchell as the episode goes on. And this is the only episode where we again see the then chief medical officer for the Enterprise, Dr. Daner. And there he goes, looking through the database again. Of course, Spock's aware of it, and now Jim's aware of it. And notice how Spock referred to him as the one you used to know. And Gary's aware that they can see him and he can see them. Right back. She called him on his previous comment about her. He's realizing what powers he has now. Think about it. What would any of us do if we had ESP? Think about it and tell me what you would do if you had ESP. I don't even know what I would do if I had ESP. I'm not sure, Tim. See, he's explaining some of his abilities. He's able to go through the ship's library in not even a full day. He has superior memory, superior photographic abilities. Yes. What would any of you do if you had extrasensory powers? Or perception in this case? Yeah, and we will be watching the Voyage Home, and I probably will ask you, Tim, how do you feel? How do you feel? See, and Gary can see problems with the ship, bringing up the impulse engines. And that's the thing, Tim. You know, I'm curious to know which episodes that we watch are going to be episodes that people say, this isn't that bad anymore. I mean, I'm not really fond of the episode Imaginary Friend from Next Generation, but it'll be interesting watching that episode again and seeing how we all, look at it now as compared to when we first watched it. You wouldn't know by watching this episode how well the dynamic between Kirk and Spock would become. Because again, they're still trying to figure things out, and we have to give a lot of credit to DC Fontana. It was her influence, her writing for Spock that helped pave the way and carve the path for where Spock was going and how Spock and every other Vulcan after Spock would be. No one's been hurt yet. They're realizing if they don't do anything, they're going to be in the same situation as the Valiant was almost 100 years earlier, and that they have to do something before Gary Mitchell becomes too powerful. Now Kirk's going to be faced with a dilemma. Does he kill his friend to save his ship? Or does he allow Mitchell to gain powers that make them, as Spock said, mice on board Kirk's own ship? Now we're in Act 3. Kirk doesn't like what he has to do, but he has to do it. He has to strand Mitchell on Delta Vega. Of course, he's worried. He's worried about the safety of his ship and his crew. There you see electricity coming from Mitchell's hand, so his powers are growing even stronger. And Kirk saw his opportunity to knock out Mitchell. Now they're going to sedate him. And he's quickly coming to. Beautiful matte painting. I mean, that's how they had to do it back then. They had to use matte paintings and, you know, practical effects because, again, they didn't have the fancy CGI that we have. Even Next Generation still used matte paintings, as did Deep Space Nine, Voyager. Had a wannabe welcome, brother. Good to see you over on the Cosme side. Of course, he's in the holding cell and is fully activated. Always good to see you, brother. what it would have been like to have those contacts in the eyes and to give his eyes that silver effect. There you see, he put his hands up against the force field, and just the energy from the force field, at least for the moment, subsided his ESP abilities. And another thing you'll notice on Spock's uniform is he's not wearing, the Starfleet emblem, which was for the original series, the Enterprise emblem for the Science Division. He's wearing one for Command. And there's Spock with the phaser rifle that Scotty was just mentioning. Unfortunately, Dr. Daner is wrong, and Spock's mentioning it right here. It's because she feels, and Spock doesn't. He suppresses emotions. Now we're in Act 4. Unfortunately, Kelso isn't long for his Starfleet career. As Mitchell just killed him. So who would win in a showdown? Gary Mitchell or Emperor Palpatine? I'll leave that for all you to answer. As you can see, Padawan, nobody's wearing a red shirt in this episode. She's an Esper as well. She was affected just like Gary Mitchell was on the bridge. And it's good to see our resident science officer, Mr. DJ Ronnie G, Lieutenant Commander. Exactly, DJ. Kirk's trying to appeal to Dr. Dana's human side. Yep, DJ is bringing up something that's going to pop up, and some fans of modern Trek have criticized again. Yes, they had a series Bible, but they're still trying to flesh out these characters. This is only the first pilot as far as Kirk is concerned. Second pilot overall, but first pilot with Kirk, and they haven't fleshed him out. They haven't fleshed out any of the characters. There are only four of the main characters that you see in this episode, with it being Kirk, Spock, Scotty, and Sulu. You don't see Uhura or McCoy. Of course, you could say Chekhov, but again, Chekhov doesn't come in until the second season. And notice the name inscribed on the tombstone. It's not James T. Kirk, it's James R. Kirk. It's all right. I made a mistake and called Dr. Kelso, I'm sorry, Kellner tonight, Dr. Daner. I'm capable of making errors myself, DJ. No worries, brother. You could almost say Gary Mitchell was a dark side user before we even knew what a dark side user was. That's all right, DJ. Like I said, I'm not gonna go after you. I mean, there's 735 episodes of Star Trek from '66 to 2005. That's a lot of episodes to remember what happened in what particular order, what particular season for each and every series. And I do still have Lord Credit of Everett's Productions links in the chat. He was our guest on Wednesday for Pop Talk, so if you'd like to check out some of his fan films that he's done on his channel, please do. Honestly, I'm grateful we still have William Shatner with us. If Kirk doesn't do anything, he may find himself overmatched. And now Mitchell's in the grave. Kirk's taking his chance. And at least for now, Gary Mitchell is sealed away. And now we've lost Dr. Daner. Now we're at the last moments of the episode. See, even in the end, Kirk still wants to give his friend dignity. And that's the episode. And its original cut. And see, notice how different people they aren't listed as characters that were known for them playing. So, like I was saying earlier, but just gotta ask you guys, guys and gals, what do you think of that? Where No Man Has Gone Before. Again, that was the original cut of the episode, and I don't know how many of you have actually seen that episode. Some of you may have in its original broadcast form, but for that particular version, it gives you a little bit more than what the broadcast version does as far as Kirk's captain log and the epilogue. And you get some details about the past between Kirk and Gary Mitchell and Dr. Daner, of course. Of course, you see, characters that you don't see again, like Kellner and, Kelso. That was his only appearance as far as the series was concerned. So, if anybody has any questions or comments, please put them in the chat right now, whether you're watching it on YouTube, Rumble, or X. Well, you're welcome, Lady Miss. This is something I plan on doing more of. Like I said in the beginning, this is going to be a bi weekly Saturday night series where we take one specific episode from any of the series or one specific movie and we talk about like we did tonight with you guys, of course, guys and gals, and give our thoughts on it. Now, before I'd seen the original cut of Where No Man Has Gone Before, I'd only seen what was the original broadcast version. So actually seeing this extended cut, seeing certain scenes, especially when you see the crew walking through the corridor, I think that's important to show that the Enterprise is, a living ship that has personnel in different departments and show how they get about. Eh, And I know what you mean because when we do get to the original pilot, The Cage, and I'm going to tell you all how I'm already planning on doing that. One Saturday night, we'll watch The Menagerie Part 1, then a couple weeks later we'll watch Part 2, then a couple weeks after that we'll watch The Cage. And you'll see things that are shown in The Menagerie as far as Part 1 and Part 2 are concerned, and then you'll see The Cage as it was intended, and you'll notice things. And one of the things that Spock does do that Tree Rock just brought up is Spock does yell because in The Cage, you hear in the opening scene on the bridge yell out, "Check the circuit." And let me see what else everyone is saying. Padawannabe is saying it was vaguely familiar. I can't say I've seen it before. Never in its entirety, for sure. All right. See, and that's what I was talking about earlier. For folks that may not have ever seen an episode, this gives you a chance to see a specific episode every other Saturday. And for some of you, you may enjoy it more than others. And like I said, there may be episodes you enjoy, but others don't. And one of those episodes being Move Along Home. And Tree Rock says, and how dare Spock smile in this episode? Again, they hadn't figured the characters out yet. And we'll see as the series goes along. And of course, if you've already watched all the series before, you know this. But you see as the series goes along that they do figure out Spock's character and how the Vulcans are. Leonard Nimoy coming up with the Vulcan salute and his stories about how that came about. And DJ Ronnie G says, very naval. Even Sulu was a department head. Yeah, yeah. You can definitely tell that those who worked on Star Trek, especially back in the 60s, served in the armed forces. Because again, this is coming out 21 years after the end of World War II. And practically everybody who worked on the show back then had served at one point during World War II, including Gene Roddenberry. DJ Ronnie G says, I think Mitchell telekinetically damaged the impulse pack or whatever that component was called that would have blown up the impulse deck. That part would not have been a hazard on its own. Yeah, yeah. When Mitchell starts realizing his powers, that he's going to start doing things to manipulate the situation to his advantage. And DJ Ronnie G, let's see. I'll get to your comment in just a second. But the Padawannabe says, got your Star Wars Fallen Order playlist running. Thank you. Thank you very much, Padawannabe. Padawannabe is trying to help me out as far as my watch hours are concerned so I can get some ad revenue for the YouTube channel. Last I checked, I had 3,381. That's as of today. So I still have a ways to go before I reach the 4,000 watch hours to get the ad revenue. And With that ad revenue, it would basically be used to try to use some music in some videos. And yes, doing so would mean that I'd have to share the revenue from the ads to use it. But there are certain songs and certain tracks I would love to use, but I can't use at the moment because if I do use them, I get a copyright claim at least if I get the 4,000 watch hours for the ad revenue and I'm accepted, then I'll be able to use some of those tracks, hopefully without any issues. And DJ says that he loves Spock's emotional outbursts. Yeah, again, it's trying to establish the character, and they hadn't quite done that yet. Lady Mist says that she's seen it before many times and still enjoyed it. Yeah, that's the thing about classic movies, classic television shows. It doesn't matter how many times you watch episodes from those TV series or how many times you watch a particular movie, you still get the same enjoyment every time. Yesterday, I went and saw the re-release of Revenge of the Sith in the same theater I saw it in 20 years ago, and I still came away with the same feeling I had when I left the theater some 20 years ago. I still enjoyed it. And that was another thing as to why I wanted to do a Star Trek stream was to show what good Star Trek is. Even some of the episodes I think are bad episodes. Again, like I've been saying all night, may not be a bad episode to someone else. And, just to give people something to look forward to and maybe one day because I've always been an optimist. Always try to keep some optimism. Maybe one day we'll get back to the Star Trek and Star Wars that we love. We might have to wait a long time, and in some cases, it might be a cold day in hell, but maybe one day we'll get back to good Star Wars, good Star Trek, good television, good movies in general. Yeah, he was. Yeah, and you can't blame him. And Tree Rock is saying those shirt collars are dangerous. Yeah, but those shirt collars were also the same ones that they had used for the original pilot with Jeffrey Hunter. Unfortunately, NBC rejected that pilot after they saw it. And of course, I would have loved to have seen more life on the Enterprise in that original pilot, but really, you only see what's happening on the bridge and then in Pike's quarters. So, yes, talking about the episode as we're watching it, that's one of the main parts of this biweekly Saturday night stream is as we're watching it, we talk about it, point out things. Lady Miss says, "See what you were talking about many times too at Padawannabe. Kirk's shirt always seems to fly off." That's right. Kirk gets into a scuffle. Well, you got to rip the shirt. Everybody knows Arena with the Gorn. DJ says Shatner had to shave his chest and he it made him itchy in the uniform. Okay. I bet even Spock could put the Vulcan neck pinch on, even with the colors. But when it comes to this episode, it's definitely the foundation of the original series that we know of, and it gives us the adventures that we end up going on with Kirk and crew in the future, especially after the series ends and the movies begin. And we owe a lot to this episode. Of course, this was the second pilot, and it was shot before the Man Trap, which was actually the first episode aired on NBC. And where No Man Has Gone Before falls into this, it actually ended up airing as the fourth episode of the first season. Well, I mean, look at it this way too. It was very rare for them back then to reject a first pilot, but have enough faith and say, okay, you get a second chance. Make good on your second chance. And DJ says, you can see what the view screen looks like while it's off. It looks black and white TV with improperly adjusted V hold. Yeah. Well, again, and that's a sign of the times too. And I actually like that view screen that you see in Where No Man Has Gone Before. You can see where the other series took inspiration from that particular view screen. Anytime you look at one, look at the Defiance. Every time you look at that view screen, you can tell that it took some inspiration from the one from Where No Man Has Gone Before. I'm talking about the Defiant from Deep Space Nine. I can understand why you're not a fan of that particular phaser rifle design. Of course, understanding that it was the 60s, so they were trying to think futuristic. And if you look at Forbidden Planet, they even had designs for their weapons that they thought were futuristic. And you could tell where Star Trek got inspiration from that. And of course, DJ disagrees and then says, jokes aside, first time I saw it, it was pretty funny looking. Yeah, it was. Yeah, all stations. But again, going back to what I said before, everybody who worked on the original series had served in the military during World War II. So they were probably recalling their own experiences serving in the different branches. I mean, you even look at the designs for the corridors that Matt Jeffries designed, and it's very naval ship inspired. And let's see what else DJ is saying. He says, I did feel that it shared lineage with laser pistols. Yeah, because even in the cage, the hand phasers that we know, they're not hand phasers, they're lasers. It's only later, after Where No Man Has Gone Before, that we get the phasers. Of course, with NBC airing The Man Trap first, that's when you first see the phasers. But if you go by a production order for the original series, it would be Where No Man Has Gone Before, and then you would start seeing the phasers come in the next episode. Well, you can't help it. Even I left when I watched Tomorrow is Yesterday, and there's a exterior shot of the Enterprise, and it's just moving up and down. And I laughed as a kid. I was 7 years old, but I look at that scene now when it shows the exterior shot of the Enterprise just moving up and down. It makes me smile because they were at least trying. That would have been cool. And I want to say, welcome to Dances with Owls. Welcome to the channel. Says the TNG series is still good to this day. Thank you, Lucy. Exactly. Thank you for bringing up that point. If it wasn't for Lucille Ball and Desilu Studios, we wouldn't have Star Trek. The fact that even she had faith in Gene Roddenberry to produce the second pilot that we watched tonight, we owe a lot to her. We owe a lot to Desilu Studios, and of course, Desilu Studios was bought out by Paramount. But thank you to Lucille Ball. And DJ says, and plus, once you learn what it took to do VFX back then, yeah, it took a lot of work. It wasn't like today where we could do things with computers and create the special effects. They had to create all the effects themselves. Yeah, it is. It definitely is. It's too bad we've lost everybody who worked on the original series because I would have loved to have asked them questions. Well, how did you come about making this effect and that effect? And you know, one of the explanations for the effect for the transporters beaming up and down was just glitter and water. And of course, Dances with Al says, "Hey, lady." But yes, that's gonna go ahead and wrap up this stream, the first episode of The Adventure Continues, a Star Trek discussion. I do want to let you all know that on Saturday, May 10th at 8 p.m. Eastern, my special guest will be Mr. DJ Ronnie G. And we will be watching and discussing, and I invite all of you to come by, watch, and discuss Tomorrow's Yesterday, the episode that made me realize I was a fan of the original series. And let me see if there's any other comments. And while I look for any other comments, I do want to let you all know that tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern will be the Sunday edition of Pacific 4 and 4 Pop Talk over on YouTube, Rumble, and X. And one of the topics we'll be discussing is, of course, the Predator Badlands trailer. And we will also be discussing the following topics. Let me just get to my Save Pop Talk folder, and I can tell you all about the other stories that we will be talking about for tomorrow's episode of Pop Talk. Hopefully, Baron's okay. Hopefully, nothing's happened. Maybe, he got an opportunity to do something and took it. I don't blame him. I don't blame him. Saturday night, go out with the wife and do something, but I hope he's okay, Baron. I do hope you're okay, brother. But we will be taking a look, of course, as I said at the Predator Badlands trailer, we'll be talking about the issues that were experienced with the Nintendo Switch 2 pre orders. And we will also take a look at an article from Bounding into Comics where the original director for Ghost in the Shell, the original anime the movie, talks about political correctness and what he thinks about political correctness and its effects on modern entertainment. And the other story that we will be talking about is the pressure that Sweet Baby Inc. supposedly puts on game companies when they're releasing games for current systems. But before we go here, I do want to check some of the comments and let's see. Tree Rock says that he thought Gary from this episode was going to be the villain in that movie, but no, I was wrong. I mean, it would have been interesting, don't you think, if it was Gary Mitchell who was the villain in Star Trek 2 instead of Khan? And DJ says, didn't she have? No, wait, she had BB Besh's name, the Genesis device. Yeah, yeah, Dr. Marcus. You're welcome, Lady Miss. So I really appreciate you coming by and supporting the channel. I appreciate everybody who comes by and supports the channel. Comes by on the X side and leaves a heart. That does mean a lot. And one of the things I was telling myself, reminding myself, and I was really putting my foot down and really tried to drive it in, mainly for myself, was that I don't want this to be Pop Talk. Pop Talk is its own entity. Pop Talk is a show where we will get silly and serious, but I wanted to keep this more on the serious side, where you won't see any clips like Al Bundy's "The Hell You Say" or any of the other clips that we show on Pop Talk, and we won't be making snide little jokes and little comments. No, I wanted to keep this serious. And DJ says hopefully it's because he went to Taco Bell. And he also says, or White Castle. It'll keep me busy the following day. Yeah, yeah. I hope, like I said, maybe he had an opportunity to go somewhere and took it, or maybe something came up. I'm sure I'll find out. But Baron, I hope you're okay, brother. No, no, unfortunately, no Baron tonight. But again, we'll find out. We'll find out. I, I'm more concerned and hoping that he's all right because I did try to contact him before the show started and I didn't get an answer. So just hoping everything's all right. Yes, yes. I hope to see everybody tomorrow. If you can't catch us live, be sure to catch us on the replay. And of course, the other items that will be coming up on the channel for this week is I will be playing more of Rise of the Ronin on Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern. And then, of course, Wednesday's edition of Pacific Forum 4 Pop Talk, where it's going to be a double feature. There will be restrictions for the Cosme side because the two movies that we'll be watching are both rated R and have some adult content in them. And the first movie we'll be watching is Good Morning Vietnam. And then the second movie we'll be watching is Old School. And that starts at 6 p.m. Eastern for Wednesday. And then Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern, I'll be playing more WrestleQuest on the channel. And DJ Ronnie G says, same here, Mike. Yeah, yeah. I'm not going to make a joke. I just hope he's okay. Yeah. And you want to know something? Maybe he had a busy day and he, you know, thought, okay, I have a few minutes before the show. I'm going to take a nap. I've done that. So, I get. Yeah, I'm concerned, but I'm hoping to hear from him, hoping to see him tomorrow on the show. And let me just go ahead and make sure that there aren't any other comments. I don't see any over on the Rumble side or the X side, but as I do, which is customary for every broadcast on the channel, whether it's Pop Talk or Game Stream, I do want to thank everybody who came by tonight for the premiere episode of The Adventure Continues, a Star Trek discussion. And I want to thank Lady Mist for stopping by. Thank you very much, Lady Mist. Really appreciate it. Always appreciate seeing you. FKHC 2005, also known as Tim. Thank you very much, Tim. We also had Low Specs Linux Gaming. Thank you, Low Spec. Good to see you. And let's see who else popped in. And we also had the Padawannabe pop in. Thank you very much, brother. Good to see you. And of course, DJ Ronnie G. Thank you, DJ. I'm looking forward to talking with you about tomorrow's yesterday, come May 10th at 8 p.m. Eastern. Of course, we'll be watching it and adding comments to it. And, you know, this is one of those things. If you have any inside info on the episodes while they were being made or what you've heard from someone who worked on the shows during the convention, please share it with us. And Tree Rock Creations, thank you very much for stopping by, brother. By the way, check out Tree Rock Creations X account and also YouTube channel. He's posted some funny videos, especially taking a look at old commercials. Let me get to your latest one, Tree Rock. I'm just gonna post your X link if you don't mind. So that'll make it easier for folks to find your X account and your YouTube channel. But check out his channel, check out his content, and if you like what you see, give him a sub. And let's see. Want to make sure I'm not missing anybody. And of course, Dances with Owls. Thank you for coming by the channel tonight. Let me just get your name so I can highlight it here. Something I like to do. There he is. And thank you, Dances with Owls. Again, appreciate you stopping by. I hope you like what you heard. If you didn't get to hear all of it, watch it on the replay, and I hope to see you come back more. And let me make sure that I am not missing anyone else or any other comments that have been left. Let's see. Lady Miss is saying good night. Ooh, Wolvie. Thanks for popping in, brother. Please go back and rewatch the stream if you want. We were watching and discussing the original pilot, which was actually the second pilot for Star Trek, the original series, but I'm also calling it the original pilot for Captain Kirk, and that was Where No Man Has Gone Before, and this was the original cut of the movie. And also, everybody, while you're here, please make sure you hit the three dots on the side of the chat and check out everybody's channel and give them a sub. Give Wolvie a sub, DJ a sub, Dances with Val a sub, Tree Rock Creations, Pata Wannabe. I know Pata Wannabe is getting ready to start up his own channel. Give everybody a sub. No problem, brother. It's good to see you and had fun last night. Last night it was Wolverine, Does, Blues, Gary, Shane, also known as Yaron, Fat Steven, and myself, and we played some Repo, and we also played some Marvel Rivals over on Steven's channel last night, and I know Wolfie was streaming last night too, so that was a lot of fun. But everybody, this was a lot of fun for this first episode. Watching and reacting and discussing the very first episode featuring Captain Kirk, Where No Man Has Gone Before, in its original cut. I really do appreciate everybody being here tonight. And if you liked what you saw, whether you're watching on YouTube or Rumble or on X, hit that like button, share out the stream, and consider subscribing to Pacific 4 and 4, where you're going to find a variety of content here. You're going to find Pacific 4 and 4 Pop Talk every Sunday and Wednesday. Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern, Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, and game streams every Tuesday and Thursday, unless something comes up, at 6 p.m. Eastern. And of course, every other Saturday, you will find The Adventure Continues, a Star Trek discussion, at 8 p.m. Eastern. Until next time, everybody, live long and prosper.